Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're all keeping very well. Today, we're covering a topic that I know a lot of you, especially my female listeners, are eager to hear. And before we get into the topic, let me just introduce my returning guest is Kitty Martone, also known as Healthy Gut Girl. She's a holistic health educator, nutrition counselor, and master herbalist with over 17 years of experience in gut and hormone health. She serves as the social outreach and education lead for ONAS Naturals and is a three-time, almost four-time author of several books focused on gut health. Kitty hosts the long-running Stuff Your Doctor Should Know podcast and regularly writes articles on Substack, and she's also an absolute expert in bioidentical hormones.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Three times, Kitty. This is your third time back.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you for having me. I'm a regular now.
We always have interesting conversations, though. We like to bring the truth.
Yes, absolutely. At least we want to keep searching for the truth. We don't want to settle, right? We want to keep asking the questions.
And realizing like the topic today is dim diandol methane, that there's not only one side to the story. Sometimes there's another side that we need to be aware of.
Hmm. Yeah, diindolylmethane is a really wonderful plant compound that does some amazing things in the body. But yeah, there's two sides to the story for sure that we can dig really deep into.
A lot
Um,
of the times when women are looking to use DIM, as it's commonly referred to, they're thinking of, oh, my naturopath or so and so told me I should take DIM to detoxify my estrogen. And full stop, that's as far as it goes. They get no other context. They don't actually understand what it is, what it does, the nuances around it. And you do.
mhm.
And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. Because if we're going to be using these products or herbs or supplements, we should at least understand what they do and then if they're potentially the right or wrong fit for us and our
Hmm.
body.
Absolutely. It's thrown around a lot. It's getting a lot more popular. When I first started my group 12 years ago on Facebook, it was rarely discussed. We rarely discussed it. I knew about it because the my mentor had a supplement company and he sold a version of it or a compound, like a mixture of different plant compounds, and DIM was one of them, including I3C carbinol was also one that's similar, that's from the same plants, and sulforaphane. And then all of a sudden, they started to gain traction, and you started hearing more influencers talk about them and hearing doctors recommend them, especially functional practitioners. And DIM was on the forefront. And now you can't avoid it now. It's anything that is for women, any supplement is going to have some DIM in it, almost always, kind of like ashwagandha. And it's just not good for everyone. So it's from cruciferous vegetables, as you know, like broccoli and kale. And it's a lot of people think, oh, well, I eat plenty of those vegetables, so I don't need to worry about that. But the concentrated amounts you need to acquire the amount of DIM that does what we're going to talk about here in a minute is a lot. Like you could not eat enough broccoli to get the amount of DIM to equal one capsule of diindolylmethane, which is usually 100 milligrams, usually about the normal dose. And what it does is so yeah, you're right. The doctors will say, oh, you need to lower your estrogen, take DIM. And right away, that's not what DIM does. It does not lower estrogen. So we kind of have to sort of back up a little bit and talk about the detoxification or the conjugation of our estrogen in our body to begin with, right? We have to start at the liver, and so the just to keep it basic, the estrogen gets utilized. It does its job. It creates signals in the body and it does its job. And now it's basically used, it's spent. So it needs to go through the liver to get deactivated. So it goes through phase one liver detox, and then it goes through phase two liver detox. And then it has to go through phase three gut detox and through the bowel. Well, DIM acts in phase one of the liver detox. So it goes in there and it switches. So the most basic way I can keep this, because it can get super complex, as you know, um, is that it switches the pathway, which we call the 16-OH pathway in the liver. It switches it switches the estrogen from that pathway to go down a less inflammatory, less proliferative pathway, which is the 2-OH pathway.
Kind of like
And
a
that's all,
train
that's
track
it.
and how a train track
Ex-
switches.
exactly. And and that's all it does. That's it. It doesn't lower estrogen, it doesn't bind it, it doesn't eliminate it, it doesn't do anything like that. All it does is it says it's going to put it in this train track and this one in this package, and it's going to go into this package instead. And this train track is far less inflammatory. So some people right away will ask, well, why would the body have an inflammatory pathway with estrogen? Which is a really smart question. And it's actually not really a bad pathway. In fact, it's really important for all the things that you hear estrogen is good for, right? Bone growth and heart health and brain function and all these things. That's a lot of that happens because of the 16-OH pathway. So 16-OH, when you hear 16-OH, think growth of tissue, think growing a fetus, think growing bone,
It's a growth
think
hormone. Yeah.
the 16-OH is more so than the 2-OH or the 4-OH. It's more so about proliferating. So think thickening of the lining, clotting, um, dense and fibrotic breast tissue. That's when it's gone awry. So why would it do that? Why would I force my estrogen down the 16-OH pathway and grow things? Why would my body do that? Well, like I said, it's meant to be doing it for signals to the body, like you need an estrogen hit. You need more of this kind of estrogen in the body. But if you have a lot of inflammation and you aren't clearing estrogen properly in those pathways, in those phases, phase one, phase two, and phase three, if you don't do that effectively, you will force things down the 16-OH. You're going to favor that pathway, unfortunately. And some people also favor that pathway who like genetically, which is me.
And
Yay.
me, yes.
Yes. um, so, it's just the way it is. That's the roll of the dice. And it has good sides to it and bad sides to it. But when you have a lot of inflammation, if you tend to be a clotter, like you pass clots when you bleed, dense fibrotic breasts, heavy breasts, um, lots of heavy cramping, like lower back pain when you're having your cycle, lots of
Fluid
heavy bleeding.
retention.
Pardon?
Fluid retention.
Fluid retention, those things you can pretty much be certain that you favor the 16-OH. Now, something else that's really tricky that nobody seems to talk about is this. Your estrogen's made its way into the liver. It's in phase one and it's favoring that 16-OH inflammatory proliferative pathway. And then it goes into phase two where it gets bound up, like packaged up and deactivated and then sent into the bowel to get um I don't not always excreted. Sometimes it will get recycled on purpose, but sometimes it'll get recycled sort of on accident because we have a sluggish bowel or a slow thyroid. And if that happens, it almost always goes back to being a 16-OH pathway estrogen. So usually women who are clotting and having all these symptoms are already recycling. They're already recycling. In fact, when I was doing Dutch tests and looking at people's metabolic pathways with their hormones, and I would first read their client form and they would say, I have these symptoms. I could 98% of the time look at that and say they favor the 16-OH pathway, I bet. And then I'd look at their Dutch and they would be favoring the 16-OH pathway.
So on
Those
a Dutch,
people,
you were seeing higher levels of the 16-OH.
yes. And so those people, they were good candidates for using DIM. They were great candidates. If And here's where it gets, this is the part, the nuance you're talking about, where doctors and other practitioners just don't really know that this is happening, which is that, yes, they're a good candidate. Yes, their 16-OH is high. Yes, they could use that conversion help to 2-OH. But then it gets packaged up and it gets sent into the bowel and ready for excretion. And they have a slow thyroid, they have a sluggish bowel, they have slow motility, or they have really wet motility, like really wet stools, which is another kind of constipation, in my opinion. Um, Now they're recycling uh, that exact estrogen that they were trying to convert, right? They're recycling estrogen at the bowel. They're getting rid of stuff, but they don't have the means to release it. It's not exiting. And so they're having like a backup. So this is my entire detox essentials courses that I teach. I teach the little mini one, and the mini one is all about this. It's all about opening your phase 3 gut detox, supporting natural detox at the bowel. You have to have those bowels moving in a healthy way in order to excrete what you are converting at the top. So that goes for not just DIM, that goes for any amount of detoxification that you're doing. Anything that you're doing to support detox at the liver and the gut. If your gut is slow, you're just going to recycle all those toxins that you've pushed into the bowel. So that's a huge problem. And what you see is women taking them and having headaches and having all kinds of symptoms, things getting much worse, or things are getting better in one way and much worse in another way. And that's something to look out for. So there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of different things that can affect what happens to your DIM and what happens to your estrogen after you take DIM. And it's worth, investigating and going slow. A lot of people will say, oh, someone just posted this in my group a couple days ago. They had a picture of a bottle of DIM and they were like, this is life changing. I'm going to double, you know? And it's like, wait, slow down. Don't, it just more is not always better, and it's a powerful, I call it a big gun because it's powerful, a powerful compound.
So if you don't mind, let's just stick on the 16OH for a minute, because one thing I see really common, especially since COVID, is women with these symptoms of higher estrogen and even on the Dutch test, and they will do something like DIM or they'll try to encourage their estrogen detoxification, so they think, but at the same time, they also drink a lot of alcohol and they
Mm,
also have IUDs too. So they may not necessarily be even getting a bleed each month. So my concern there is, well, you have bowel issues because all the alcohol, and usually if there's a lot of alcohol, the diet's not really great either.
hmm
But now we know that the alcohol is going to affect your liver, and even if there was no liver damage, the pace at which the liver can deactivate the estrogen is impaired because it's focused on the alcohol. And now you don't have a bleed each month, so you're not releasing estrogen that way. My concern is you're just backloading it. You're recycling the whole lot, and eventually, as they say, there's going to be a piper to pay for that.
The bill will come due. I'm a huge fan of alcohol. I have always been a drinker, always, like since I was able to drink. It was just part of my lifestyle. I wasn't like, getting hammered and not that kind of thing, but a social drinker, you go out with friends drinking. And then as I got older and my life got even more social, it was just a part of life. And I somehow justified it because I'm okay. Well, I'm not an alcoholic and I don't drink that much,
So
but
you want to, yeah.
the consistency of it was what was really causing problems. And I didn't want to admit that, I did not want to admit that. And I see it so much now. I rarely drink, which is another thing that I really like about being here in Florida, is I just don't have a ton of friends that drink. And so it's really nice. But, I mean, I love my friends who drink, by the way. No offense to you guys, but it was just so bad for my liver. And you're right. But there's also a lot of other things that impair liver function. People who have a very high PUFA, content in their diet, like a lot of seed oils, a lot of restaurant food and processed foods, and those weigh heavy on the liver. Medications, consistent taking of antihistamines and um, pain relief, statins, any kind of medication, some more than others, but all of them across the board weigh heavy on the liver. They have to go through the liver to be detoxified. They have to get, they're expensive in the liver. They take a lot of energy, and they impair um, the body's ability to do. It's because it's a burden. There's too much. The liver is supposed to be doing this stuff. So I'm not trying to say, you know, don't the liver can't do it. It can, but there's a point when the burden is so high and heavy and expensive that things start to fall off, like things to take a back seat, like estrogen conjugation and estrogen detoxification, testosterone, where your testosterone goes, when, how you use it. I always say to people, the goal is to get your body into a place where you're doing healthy things with the hormones that you take and the hormones that you make. Because you can do bad things with your own hormones. You don't have to be supplementing. You're going, yeah, I was the queen of that too. Like it's just, um, a lot of things can do that. Fatty liver, um, medications, yeah, stress. Okay, let's put all of those things to the side, even the alcohol. The stress is even harder on your liver than alcohol. It takes the top position. It is so taxing for the liver to be chronically stressed out, chronically worried, chronically, when you have trauma, old
Angry?
trauma, that
Yeah.
anger, that's like, right. That's what they used to call the liver, was the old man. Because it gets like an angry old man, right? Because you're holding all your resentment in the liver. It's more of an energetic concept, or traditional
I
Chinese
think
medicine
there's some
concept.
truth to it, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the gallbladder, the gallbladder's right there by its side, trying to do a bunch of work for you. And we're just completely just beating it up. So yeah, so back to the alcohol. So yeah, there's a lot of things that impair your body's ability and will force you to use inflammatory pathways in the liver. Force your estrogen to mostly go down those inflammatory pathways. 4-OH is the other pathway that is oxidative stress pathway. That's what they call the carcinogenic pathway. Um, so yeah, anyway.
And then if you have an IUD and you're not releasing not only the hormones, the toxins that may also that we do remove in our bleed, now like you to put it bluntly, it's a bit of a shit show.
Yeah, no, it's a major shit show. The Marina coil and just a regular. So the Marina coil, for those that don't know, is a medicated IUD, right? It's birth control inside the IUD that's slow release throughout, I think it's like a 3-month IUD. I'm not sure. And then the copper IUD is a little bit better, but it works by creating inflammation in the uterus. That's how it works. And so it's not really that great either. Um, and so when the birth control is in its own a medication that taxes the liver. But then on top of that, it also shunts or shuts down communication between the pituitary gland and the ovaries, and it stops ovulation. So it puts you in, and I've said this on your show before, it puts you into medicated menopause. And so you're basically, everything has quieted down in that way. And so, yeah, your liver is ultimately going to be the mule here, the thing that's going to have to carry the burden of all of these assaults, because that's what they are.
So just back to what we were saying about the conversion of estrogen and the genetic aspect, it's totally me. It's my family. My
Yeah.
sister presents way different than I do. She has the more common symptoms that we'd see. And I think part of it is because when I lost all my weight, since then, 20 years, I pretty much have stayed on track. Like I take good care of myself. And but she has the really obvious symptoms. I've never had issues with my bleed well, maybe PMS now, but I've never had issues. But also growing up in Dublin, there was a lot of alcohol growing up. Like even when I did lose my weight, there was still a lot of alcohol. And to this day, I'm in Canada just over 12 years now. Even though I am, as they say, clean now and I eat really well, I think there was a lot of damage done to my liver. Like we went on big benders. And I
Yeah.
still haven't fully recovered it as much as I do all the things. So a few months ago, I tried some pregnenolone. I was going through a bad patch where I just couldn't sleep. And I'm like, I'm going to take this now and see what happens. And I already do really well on progesterone. Well, I took pregnenolone and it kicked my ass. I converted most of it to estrogen within 48 hours, Kitty. I put on 8 pounds, 8 pounds,
Wow.
and it was all fluid. My breasts just swole. They were so sore and painful. My mood plummeted. My cravings went through the roof. I could barely stay awake. Like I was falling asleep. I remember doing a dead hang in the gym and I started to doze off and I was like, this is not normal. So I spoke to Carol about it and we were discussing the estrogen aspect. And then I spoke to Dr. Brownstein about it and he said he thinks that because I'm young and I sleep really well in general, that the extra pregnenolone was probably too much for my system because I already have plenty of pregnenolone, but I was
Hmm.
clearly pushing it down the estrogen pathway. It was obvious. Like I never get any of those symptoms. And that was a reminder, like, yeah, I may do everything right, but I'm still very sensitive to this. And it was good awareness for me.
And that's so interesting. I mean, sometimes pregnenolone is, I mean, for a lot of people, including myself, I just could not feel it. Although I didn't take it when I was younger. I took it already by the time I was in perimenopause and menopause to test it out. But um, yeah, it's a dramatic differences and also topical versus oral. I know how did you take
It
it?
was topical. I
That's
think
really
I
interesting.
think it was
Because
ONS.
Georgie even talks about it. It's a lot because it's at the top of the, steroidal pathway. It is the raw material that all hormones are made from. And so it has a long way to go to get to estrogen, a long way to go. And it can go through so many different types of conversions on its way down. So I think the first thing it usually will go to is progesterone, and then DHEA. And when it goes to DHEA, that's when we're starting to look at the androgen side of things. And then we're looking at like testosterone converting to estrogen. That's where that would happen. I think I'd have to ask about it because I don't think pregnenolone would convert to estrogen. I think it would convert to DHEA and then it would convert to testosterone and that would turn to estrogen. It would get
Well,
aromatized
that
into
was my
estrogen.
presumption. Well, if it's topical, it's not going directly through the liver, so I should be safe. But something happened and I felt it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I would assume I do have high levels of testosterone, but I don't know. It was not fun. I still have it,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I'm only ever going to use this again when I like cannot sleep and I'm desperate because it did help with my sleep. It
Yeah.
just messed me up in other ways.
So I'm so fascinated by it. Honestly, I think I would, if I could do it all over again, I'd probably go into chemistry and really study this, because I'm just like, okay, why and why you, and why not this person? And we just do so. And this is why, let's bring it back to the story. This is why it's so important for doctors to spend the time to address, first of all, for them to understand the nuance, But then for them to address it with each individual patient, to be able to say, okay, why did she do this? Why is this happening in her body? Why is DIM doing this in her body? And does she really need it? And, there's so many variables, which gets frustrating for the average woman to be like, just probably your mind will explode just listening to us talk about this. Like, I don't have time to deal with 16OH, 8OH, 5OH. I don't have time. And so the message really for me is like, when you are going to start to support detoxification or lowering your estrogen, these little things are good to know. And the most important is, yeah, you can do all kinds of things to the liver to help you convert different things and support, estrogen doing healthy things and all the hormones. But ultimately, are you excreting them at phase 3? That's, I think, the most important thing we can do. That's why DIM goes awry for so many women, is because they don't have phase 3 supported. And that's gut health. It's not confusing. It's not, oh, it shouldn't be overwhelming. It's gut health. It's, are you pooping every day? Are you eating enough the right kind of fiber? If you can't do fiber, that means you're probably have a really slow gut and your fiber's fermenting. So let's address that. Like, it's important to focus on gut health, while you're dealing with hormones, because you can't have one without the other. You can't have healthy hormones and an unhealthy gut.
So is that one of the circumstances in where you wouldn't recommend someone using DIM is if you knew they did have major gut issues, maybe only having a bowel movement 2 or 3 times a week, which is really common. Um,
Hmm.
is that one of the ways where you'd be like, let's hold off on this for a bit and focus on your gut first? And sorry to follow up on that, what would be other circumstances where you'd say maybe DIM isn't right for you right now?
Hmm. Good question. Okay, the first part of that is, sometimes women are suffering so much that I like, if they're really clotting and they're really, dealing with dense breasts and going through it, I would say, while you're focusing on gut health, how about try the lowest amount of DIM you can try? Like, if you can get a 50 milligram capsule, try that, because it's not like estrogen. You might get a headache, you might have some reaction, but once you stop it, it's not going to kill you to try it. And if you have really high 16OH, it might be super helpful. It might be life changing. So it's not one of those things where I'm like, don't do it, like estrogen. Um, it's more like, well, how about, because you're suffering so much, give it a try if it helps. And by the way, just to make things worse and more confusing, sometimes you'll have a reaction to the DIM, and it's not to do with any. It's just the strength of the compound can give someone a headache, and it's not necessarily that you're recycling. And so that makes it a little harder too. So it's like, okay, drink a lot of water and go easy. Don't double up. If the bottle says 200 milligrams, don't go lower, go to 100 at least, maybe less. Start slow, drink a lot of water, and yeah, avoid alcohol, things like that that are going to impair your liver further, and see how it goes. But yeah, you can still, like, some women will have headaches with DIM for like a week and then they'll stop having them and then they'll have great results with the DIM. So that makes it even more tricky, because it's like, is that happening? Do I need to push through this headache and keep on taking it? And there's light at the end of the tunnel, or am I recycling my estrogen? So I say low and slow, as low amount as low a dose you can get. Hydrate, fiber, carrot salad, things like that that are going to help clear out the bowel, and then see how it goes. Now, some women who are maybe not having those kind of symptoms, maybe they're having other types of hormonal symptoms, but it's not the clotty, dense breasts, heavy breasts, all that stuff. Maybe it's other types of symptoms. Maybe they're having, their period is light. Maybe they're not having a normal cycle. I just wouldn't try to jump on DIM for that reason. There are women where I'm like, wow, they're suffering and they have gut health issues, but maybe the DIM will help. you know? And like I said, if you take it and you're absolutely miserable, just get off of it. But then the second part of your question is so good is who else shouldn't take it or who needs to be careful. And that's women who are in perimenopause and menopause, unfortunately, because they're the ones having the
Who
most,
need it?
symptoms. Right. Because it can, so the 2OH, the 4OH, and the 16OH, you don't want zero. You don't want your estrogens traveling down 2OH only. You want balance. That's so important. So you don't want to completely restrict all of your estrogen down the 2OH pathway. So women who are in, so it can lower your healthy estrogen. DIM can when you're in like in menopause. So women who are already
Well,
experiencing low levels of estrogen, it can lower it more. In fact, I see it in the group all the time. Women who are getting on DIM in perimenopause and then they make their way into menopause and makes you wonder why that happened. Like, is it because they were taking DIM and now they lowered their estrogen so much that they completely stopped ovulating and bleeding? So I never recommend it to people in menopause ever, ever, ever. I've never done that. There was a study done by Precision Analytical, probably a year ago now, that is interesting. They had women on the estradiol patch. I believe it was the patch. And they were women who favored the 16OH pathway. And they gave those women DIM. And it worked out really well. They were women who normally before menopause would be like us and have those terrible symptoms. And so they knew the women knew they were afraid. They were afraid to take the patch because they didn't want to get cancer. They didn't want to, their dense breast turned into, breast cancer. So they were really afraid. And they basically said, okay, we're going to put you on the low dose estradiol patch and DIM. And the results were excellent. So I'm not trying to endorse or encourage estradiol patches for women in perimenopause or menopause or at all, but that is something good to know. Like I think for me and you, for like knowing this, and now I'm postmenopausal. I'm 56. And so I'm doing great on no hormones right now. Fantastic. Now that might change. I might get older. I will get older, but I
not
might get
really.
older
You could get
and I might, but if I choose to get older and I start showing signs of, low estrogen, or I should say, start showing signs of imbalance of my estrogen because I have low estrogen. I have low estrogen. I have low progesterone. I have low testosterone. I'm 56. I'm supposed to, but they're all in balance. So I don't have symptoms, no
all up
symptomology
together.
of. So it's about balance. Balance matters. So if all of a sudden I started to have issues and progesterone wasn't doing the trick, then I think that I might entertain the idea of a low dose estradiol gel or patch with DIM. I don't know. I'm not there and yet, and I may not ever get there, but it's worth knowing that that's what DIM does. Um, Again, as long as your phase 3 is supported, I think that it's worth a try for women who favor that pathway for sure.
In the context, like staying on the topic of who else should not use it, what about women on specific medications or maybe going through some sort of, I don't want to say cancer therapy because if someone got a cancer diagnosis and they refuse conventional therapy because they're adamant they're going to do it the natural way themselves, DIM might be something they would consider trying, especially if they followed your content, my content, other people's where they're apprehensive of estrogen and believe estrogen is involved. Do you think that's a good idea?
Um, I think sulforaphane would be a better compound for someone with a cancer diagnosis. Um, why? For some reason, my thoughts don't go to DIM for an already diagnosed I guess I'd want to see my Dutch. I'd want to see what I'm doing with my estrogen because cancer tends to be that 4-OH pathway. It tends to be people with high 4-OH who have a lot of oxidative stress, who have low, slow metabolism, probably low thyroid, who aren't clearing at the gut at all, and who struggle at the liver as well. And sulforaphane is a great compound because it doesn't convert anything. It binds. It's more of a binder to help get rid of that oxidative stress. Um,
What
yeah,
the
I don't
Dr. Ron
know.
Patrick speaks about a lot is consuming broccoli sprouts, but she consumes a lot, like 2 cups a day, which the majority of people
Oh,
are not doing. But as a
she's a rabbit.
preventative,
That's why.
yeah, she is. If you've ever seen her day of eating, I'm like, how do you get that much vegetables in? But
She's
whatever.
like, this morning I had 2 cups of salmon eggs, salmon caviar on a piece of broccoli sprout toast that I made myself
With
with
extra
a
broccoli
raw egg on top
sprouts.
and extra broccoli sprouts. I'm like,
Plus a
delicious. My
juice
chickens
making
would love that.
cucumber, lemon, broccoli sprouts. But she's using it as a preventative. Hopefully, I mean, we'd never know if I don't think there's been any long 40, 50 year studies that yes, it can prevent. I know she references a lot of studies that sulforaphane can be helpful in cancer,
Hmm.
but we don't know for sure, but that's something she talks a lot about.
I
Um,
think there are some good studies. I think I wrote down a note here for our chat about sulforaphane. Let me see where it is. Um, and she's great. I mean, I think, I don't think you can go wrong, really. I mean, there are studies that show that too much too many cruciferous vegetables can impact the thyroid. Now, if you're eating 2 cups of sulforaphane, I mean, I don't know. Sulforaphane works in phase two detox, not phase one. It helps the body to bind and neutralize toxins, including the estrogen metabolites. We said that. It boosts your body's own detox system, like your glutathione. So that's really helpful when you're dealing with cancer, is that you want to make sure that your cleanup crew is doing a really good job of cleaning up waste. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe I just don't know if I would recommend it. If it were me, I would do it. If it were me and I had a cancer diagnosis, I would totally take DIM and sulforaphane, and I'd probably eat 2 cups of broccoli sprouts every
everything.
day.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just call
Yeah, if
her
I
up.
did.
What is your menu?
Yeah, but you know what else I would do is I would eat carrot salad every single day. I mean, I do it in phases. I eat the carrot salad in phases because one of the primary things that any kind of disease, what you're dealing with is some level of endotoxin in the body. And so, particularly cancer. So, I think, clearing that out through something like the carrot salad is really smart. It's really helpful. And people, same thing. They think, oh, if this is good, then more must be better. And then they'll do like a whole bowl of it and they've never done it. And then they wonder why they're constipated and their hands are turning orange. It's like start low and slow with these things. You're moving estrogen. You're moving estrogen when you take DIM. You're moving estrogen when you eat carrot salad. And the reason is because of, you're clearing out estrogen at the bowel and other toxins. So, like when you move hormones, you have to take it easy, take it slow. Don't just because, you feel better on this doesn't mean you should take 400 more milligrams of it. Now, I say that, and you know how I feel about progesterone.
More.
More, more is often better.
Yeah.
But the good thing with that is, as you go, oh, wow, I'm feeling better. Oh, wow, I'm feeling much better. And then you stay there. You stay at the place where you feel better. And then a symptom pops up. And then you can take more progesterone. It's like, it's a little bit different because you're gauging it on what you're feeling. If you feel like crap on DIM, something's wrong, you know, something's wrong.
I had, speaking of progesterone, I have a client, long-term user of progesterone. She's taken, I want to say a lot, but it's really not a lot. It's a lot in what the average person considers a lot in conventional medicine. So she's got 300 oral bioidentical progesterone, plus she uses the ONAS 20% cream too. Um, and I think last week she was having a bit of a rough day, and I'm like, just add in some more progesterone. And she was like super moody, wanted to like just argue with everyone. And she messaged me back and she's like, "Oh my God, I felt a difference immediately with." So that was an extra pump on top of what she was already taking.
Wow.
Plus she's doing thyroid the whole lot, but she's like, I don't know how to explain this, but I just immediately felt lighter and happier, and she couldn't get the word out. I was like joyful because that's what
Mm-hmm.
progesterone does. It helps us find our joy again and feel like joyful. And she's like, yeah, yeah, but she felt it immediately. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you are one of these women that needs a lot more, but kind of hands are tied when doctors at max will give you 300. If you're
Mm-hmm.
lucky, and we are lucky, there's a doctor here that will do it. And then the rest is the cream, but then with the cost of everything, and of course, we're going to pay for what's important to us, but we also have to eat. So it's
Yeah.
like trying again balance everything. But it was a really
Yeah.
good experience for her because then it was like, you clearly need more than what you've been doing, but if we can keep you at a place where you feel good and maybe not always joyful, then we'll stick with that.
Right. Well, I always say, you know, yeah, if you can afford to take more, great. But you also don't want those mega doses, they're not sustainable, you know? They're not sustainable financially. You're also putting cream on all the time and dosing the pills. I I always say keep doing what's working, but let's try to get to the bottom of why you are in such demand or why you aren't absorbing. Your body would never make, let's just say she did 800 milligrams that day. Your body would never make 800 milligrams in a day if you're pregnant in the first trimester, but you're not going to make that much progesterone. So something is happening biologically, biochemically, where she's not absorbing it all, or, something is happening that's being overlooked. And so I say, keep doing what's working, but let's try to find a way out of this. Let's try to, and always it's going to start with thyroid and are you eating enough in the day?
Oh,
And,
hers is
you know,
definitely stress, like
yeah, I was going to say, or are you converting everything
massive.
to cortisol because you're so stressed out?
She is
That's
like,
an expensive, stress is expensive.
it's the worst. It's worse than anything. I
It
mean, and
is.
it's and still I think it's underrated. People still don't recognize the damage it does, right? Like even to our physiology.
I have to tell you, I got this Whoop band
I have a
because,
whoop. I
okay,
saw it. I was like,
amazing.
she's got a whoop.
Okay, my friends made me do this because I'm going on this hike. We're going to Havasu Falls in Arizona, which is like the best, most expensive hike in the US. It's like, you have to get a permit. And once the permit, if you get a permit at all, it's like a 4 day, it's 10 miles into the Grand Canyon, so decline. And then you spend 4 days in the canyon and 3 nights on the river. And the falls are like turquoise blue. It's been on my bucket list forever. So I got my permit and I said, guys, I got a permit really easy. Who wants to come? And my two girlfriends were like, yeah. So they both have whoops and they were like, you need to get a whoop because, we're talking about training for this hike. So I get it. And I'm like, I hate this thing. I hate this green light that's shining in my body. I hate all of it. It's just too much information that I have to look at every day. And it became like a
I love
chore.
it.
And all of a sudden, it's like it clicked. And I started to understand so much about my body. And the reason I'm telling this story is because my HRV, right? My heart rate variability and my recovery is so, it hangs in the balance based on my stress.
What
I
are your
can see it.
numbers?
Oh my God, my HRV is crap. My HRV, I said, if it goes to one, am I going to die?
I have a client, her HRV is 11. I'm like, how are you still alive?
Okay, well, that makes
Mine
me feel better.
Mine is usually 100, 110. Like mine is
Amazing.
excellent, but I've been wearing the Whoop for 4 years. So in the beginning, when I saw it was good, then I started to notice the trends and what optimized my
What
recovery, where I do
exactly?
best. And it was a lot of what I teach in anyway, but it was nice to see it. And now I know if I eat too late in the day, that will affect my recovery. If I have alcohol, that will affect my
Oh,
REM
that's a
sleep. So I
massive.
know everything, but I'm like, it's my best friend. What am
I
I going to do if
know.
he leaves
Yeah.
me?
Well, that's why I'm telling the story is because I was shocked at how much stress impacts my recovery, how I'm feeling. And I feel fine. I'm like, oh, I feel great today. I feel great. I'm going to go on a weighted vest walk for 4 miles and just, really hit it. And my whoop is like, you probably shouldn't do that today. But I'm like, I feel great. And I do it. And it's recorded as stress. It's not recorded as, oh yeah, your heart rate's up and you're doing good today. This is a good strain. No, it's like you're in the stress zone for 45 minutes or for 2 hours. And so it's such good insight for me because I never realized how stressed out I was getting. Like I'll be sitting in front of the computer at home, beautiful day, relaxed, writing or working or answering questions in the group and it'll buzz like an hour, 2 hours into working, it'll
Like you're
buzz. And I'm
doing a
like, what?
workout, but you're not doing a
Yeah.
workout.
And it'll say, you're in the stress zone for an hour, 45 minutes. You should take a break. And I'm like, I'm sitting on the sofa working.
Still speaks
Yeah,
to your adrenaline, yeah.
exactly. And it's so insightful. If people can afford it, I highly recommend getting it because it really does show you how much more stressed out you are than you think you are. You're way more
But
stressed
how
out than you
well you're
think you are.
recovering, which is
That too.
key. My primary focus with the Whoop is my HRV, my deep sleep, my REM sleep. The other numbers are nice, but though every morning I'm almost excited to see
To
what was
look.
my deep, what was my REM sleep, and then I know if my REM sleep was not good, guess what? My cravings are going to go through the roof later on in the day. And then deep sleep, why was my deep sleep not good? Like
That's
in my
so,
opinion, for someone who wants to be a high performer, it is invaluable. It's
yeah.
expensive, but it's invaluable. Like it's more
I don't
expensive
think
in,
so. I mean, the
well, in
one I
Canada,
have
I
is
was gonna say it's more expensive because our exchange
okay.
is crap. It's
Well,
like
I have the peak and it's like $20 a month, I think.
I have
And
the Peak Plus and it's like $50 a month, which is fine for me. Hashtag business expense. But but with our exchange rate, it's crap. But
right.
at this stage, I
Right.
have considered at what stage would I stop paying for that? Do I still need to do it? I already know my body pretty well, but I'm not ready to let go of it yet.
Interesting.
They
Yeah.
saw a sucker when I came along.
Right. Well, I refused and then all of a sudden I'm like in, but you said something that triggered a thought, which was oh, I got rid of Netflix. I'm like, okay, there goes Netflix. And now I have this, and I'm just like, what do I really need this? Do I really need to DoorDash? I quit. I gave it up for Lent and I'm never doing it again. I refuse to DoorDash ever again.
And you're using
And
that money for this.
and I'm just, well, yeah, the Netflix money really is what I justified the Whoop for was like, and but anyway, also, yes, so I was saying it can tell you how stressed out you are, but yeah, your recovery. And you can see, okay, like I'm what not to do. Like you think you're doing good, you think you're doing a good thing by, oh, since I walked 8,000 steps yesterday, I'll walk 10,000 today. And it tells you that's probably not a good idea. And that stuff is, I think, invaluable because a lot of times we want to push ourselves beyond and, yeah, and the sleep and being in menopause, that's also really, or postmenopausal, that's also really good information to know how I'm sleeping because sometimes, like if I take a Benadryl or I take a quarter of a Xanax because I had like a really bad, this happened a couple of weeks ago where I was super stressed out and I'm like, I'm never going to sleep tonight. And I took a quarter of a Xanax, which I hadn't done in ages. My recovery was in the red. I got no REM, but I slept like a log because I was sedated, which is completely different from
Like
actually
wine.
sleeping.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's just good to know that stuff because you start to learn more about your body and like, oh, this
And
is
if I do this, my recovery is amazing or my deep sleep is amazing. So now you're encouraged to do more of the good stuff. Because you
exactly,
know better and you know how you
exactly,
feel. Like as much as I'm tempted to watch Netflix some evenings, you're exhausted and you're like, I just give me a break. I know what it's gonna do, so I will still gravitate to my book and my evening routine because I'll feel rubbish. And I know all
exactly.
this.
That's so funny. I will try to leave the TV on, especially when I'm here alone. I'll leave the TV on because I just want some noise and I don't want to get scared at all. So I like to leave the TV on, and then I recover. My sleep is always bad. So yeah, I stick with the routine. I do all these things now, and it's starting to show that consistently my sleep is getting better and better. Even though it's hard to fall asleep for me sometimes because my brain is always going, if I let myself wind down and I don't have anything, melatonin, nothing, I just really work on winding down my own brain, I'll always have better sleep on my whoop. It's funny.
All right, we're going to start wrapping up now. So I think this is the best way to wrap up is just going back to the dim.
Okay.
If we are using dim with a client, what are they expecting to see or experience like in positives? We've already discussed the
hmm
negatives. So if it works and they do great on it, what should they experience? And also, what way are they dosing it? Is it, and I don't mean specific dosages, but first thing in the morning with breakfast, before bed, like how are we doing that?
Um, well, first of all, I think if you can get a 50 milligram, which isn't as common, I would do that. I would start with 50. If not, then do 100 every other day is what I would do. Morning is fine. I don't really know if there's a specific, it's not like going to be affected by with food or without. Not that I'm aware
I
of. I've
don't
never
think
heard
so.
that.
Like
Yeah,
Vitex wouldn't be affected by food.
right. It's just going to do its thing regardless of if you have an empty stomach or not or the time of day. Also, your urine will turn dark orange. That's totally normal, and it's just part of the compound itself. Nothing to be worried about unless you're used to orange, dark urine, in which case that's not good. Dehydration, blood in the urine, that's always bad. But no, it'll be dark orange, really normal. You should notice your symptoms. I mean, dramatic, dramatic. If it's helping you, you should notice your symptoms going away. So you shouldn't feel that those women that have the painful sore breasts or the tender nipples or the dense breasts around their cycle, they usually will right away feel better. Um, what else? Yeah, all those symptoms that we talked about earlier, just betterment, just, you notice them getting better. And you can, I think, any like 10 days with something like DIM, whereas like progesterone, you want to kind of give it 3 months of seeing some progress and ups and downs. With DIM, you should start to notice around the 10-day mark. And I wouldn't do it ongoing. I would not take DIM for you know, a year. I wouldn't do consistent dim dosing. For me, I would probably do like a 3 month maximum, just to see its effects on each of, if you're bleeding, to see its effects on my cycle over the course of 3 months,
Mhm.
and work your way up to daily dosing and work your way up to 100 milligrams is what I would do personally.
I was just thinking as you were speaking there, you mentioned sore nipples, and when I do consultations, I'll always ask if there's any hairs on the nipples as like confirming a PCOS thing. Do you think DIM could be helpful with PCOS? Because there's an estrogen component there.
What's so interesting is might have been Carol Peterson who told me years ago when I was taking testosterone and I was converting it to estrogen. She said you should take DIM. And I think I did for I can't speak on it personally, but I do know there are people who are converting their testosterone. They're androgens. They have high androgens. They have high DHEA. They have high, they're having like hair in places they shouldn't and losing hair in places they shouldn't. And then they're like maybe oily face, oily skin, acne on the back and the chin line. It wouldn't be entirely a bad idea to try
And
DIM and see
see.
if it helps in that way. Absolutely.
Did you think it made a difference for you when she recommended it?
That's why I said I can't speak on it because I didn't push through. I didn't continue. And I wish that I had because that's when I was in
At
perimenopause.
least as a case study. Yeah.
Yeah, because I did such bad things with my testosterone and it was so bad. It was so bad that I gained, I don't know, it was the most weight I'd ever gained in my life. I think I gained 20 pounds in like 6 or 7 months. I had gone from I was like 128 pounds most of my adult life. And all of a sudden I was like, what is happening? My jawline changed. I felt like my jaw got more square. And I researched it and talked to people, and they said, "Yeah, think about steroid users. You know, if they're converting their testosterone and they're taking enough to where they're making a difference, a meaningful difference in the body, and they're converting all that to estrogen, yeah, you're going to grow bone. You're going to have those effects for someone who aromatizes like I did so easily." And I wish that I had taken the dim, but now I'm scared because my testosterone's quite low and I would like it to be higher, but I'm afraid because I'm already like in menopause weight, and it's easy to gain weight in menopause. I mean, you can just sneeze and there's 5 pounds for some reason. You're like, wait, what? And so I'm scared to take testosterone with the dim, and I'm just scared too. But if anyone else there wants to try, let me know how it goes.
Let us know what happens. Yeah. Oh, Kitty, this
Yeah.
was funny and enlightening at the same time.
And an advertisement for Whoop. Maybe they'll pay us.
Yeah, they can send us some bloody rewards or something or free
Yeah, a couple
slots or
months free.
something. Yeah. Well, good luck on your hike and anyway. Watch out to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time today. I know we were trying to get this locked in for a while and it was you. I didn't want anyone else. I'm like, no, I'm going to get Kitty.
Oh, I hope I wasn't off in the weeds. I just want to just reiterate that dim is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but you have to make sure that it's right for you. And that might be by experimenting, or it might be by looking at your Dutch and saying, "Oh, my 16OH is fine. I don't need dim." Or you might be in menopause and I don't want to risk lowering my estrogen any more than it is, you know?
Mhm.
That's the simple. I didn't want to go off in the weeds about all the pathways, but
But it
I
was
think it's
good. But
important.
at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're saying just like everything else, everything is in context.
Hmm.
Always.
So important.
Well, thank you, Kitty. Thank you for your time today. Well, I hope people already know where to find you, but go on. Where can people find you?
In the estrogen dominant support group, my advanced detox essentials and mini detox essentials course, which you can find on my healthygutgirl.com website. Stuff Your Doctor Should Know. My Substack is also called Stuff Your Doctor Should Know. My Instagram is Healthy Gut Girl Official. And then my book coming out is called Balance Matters. And I intend on having a hard copy in my hand by the end of May. So
Oh, and then will it go on Audible as well? Because sometimes I want to listen. I always buy the hard copy, but I also want to listen.
I'm an Audible lover. I'm actually going to narrate it myself. I don't
Good.
know if that will be ready by the same
I
time.
hate those AI voices.
No,
I
it's going to be
just can't
me.
attach to the book. My mind wanders. I need to listen to the voice of the author.
Yeah, so I'm going to narrate it, and I really hope that's actually the hard copy should be ready and for pre-sale by the end of April.
Good.
Ah! And then I should have the Audible ready by mid-May. I don't know how long that takes, so I'm guessing. But thanks for the support.
Okay. Well, I look forward to getting that. Thank you for your time and we'll chat soon.
Thank you. Good to see you.